Alright guys, my name is the Metagoblin, and today you're probably wondering why my hunter has a very silly hat on. And that's because we are doing our second episode of very niche and unusual specs in vanilla World of Warcraft. Today we are covering the Spellpower Hunter. So just before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video guys, please do give me a quick follow on Twitch, as when the game comes out I'll be able to stream properly and won't have to stream all these private servers. So let's jump in. What is the Spellpower Hunter all about? Okay, people did actually do a little bit of a Spellpower Hunter back in the day. This isn't something that really existed in raiding or any kind of PvE environment. It was more of a PvP spec, and a very niche PvP spec at that. And you're probably wondering, why the hell would anyone want to do this? Why the hell would anyone want to stack Spellpower? And the reason for that is simply because of Arcane Shot. So Arcane Shot basically doesn't scale, well, as far as I can see, it does not scale with attack power. It's okay when you're leveling, but people probably have noticed when you level a hunter to level 60, Arcane Shot suddenly becomes very crap, and you just automatically replace it with Aim Shot. However, as you can see, it's supposed to do 300 damage. Right now it's doing 372 damage. So the reason why Arcane Shot is so useful in PvP is because, one, it's instant cast. You know, it does what it says on the tin. You get damage in there pretty quickly and instantly, which is very useful when you're trying to kite someone in PvP. Aim Shot is a pain in the backside to even pull off in a PvP environment, because a lot of the time your target gets into melee range, the kind of dead zone, before you've even got the aim shot off, right, which is extremely irritating. Another great thing about Arcane Shot is that when it crits, it will literally do twice the damage. Okay, a lot of times when abilities crit, they will do 1.5 times as much damage, but with Arcane Shot you actually do double. I also want to quickly draw your attention to the Arcane Infused Gem. So in the patch 1.12 state, basically Arcane Shots also do an AoE effect when the Arcane Shot has been cast, but back before patch 1.12, this gem basically increased the amount of spell power bonus that your spell power stats gave you to the Arcane Shot, because Arcane Shot can only benefit from 40% of your spell power, but with this gem it increased even further to 100%, right? And this is why a lot of hunters used it back in the day, because it became ridiculously strong, because you can get Arcane Shots doing not as much damage as Aim Shot, but round about the equal amount of damage as an Aim Shot when it crit, and it obviously be instant cast. So, but I still think it's viable without this gem in its older state. So what I'm going to do, very quickly show you the spec, show you what the spec is all about, talk you through it. What you're doing most of all is you're just kind of doing the standard, standard PvP spec. You're getting humanoid slaying, all the standard stuff. The only difference being, I think, yeah, this is pretty much all the standard spec. What you do want to get is Wyvern Sting. So Wyvern Sting benefits from 100% of your spell power. And the great thing about Wyvern Sting is the damage is over 12 seconds. So the dot itself, it's about, if you calculate it all together, at the moment I'm only in pre-base gear and I'm doing about 800 damage with Wyvern Sting, but that's spread over 12 seconds and it's ticking very, very quickly. In fact, I may as well just show you how fast the damage is and how much it's ticking for, because it's not bad at all. So I get Wyvern Sting on a target, and then you've got to kind of like trick it into thinking it's in combat, because it's a target dummy on this server. So it ticks for 136, but as you can see, it seems to tick really fast. It ticks a lot faster than Serpent Sting. Fortunately, you can't have Wyvern Sting and Serpent Sting on the same target at the same time, but nonetheless, this is decent damage. This is definitely decent damage. Anyway, let me continue with the spec. So again, concussive shot, pretty standard PvP spec, but what you're going to do is you're going to get the improved Arcane Shot, reduced cooldown on Arcane Shot, and a little bit this talent here, improved Serpent Sting. I'd actually recommend against it. I've got it there to test it. It's actually really bad. You're probably better off just getting points in Hawkeye instead, and then maybe like 2 points in Mortal Shots. In fact, you might even be better just going full out on Mortal Shots, because the DPS bonus of improved Serpent Sting it's just terrible, basically. So moving on. So basically in PvP, you got a spec that can do instant damage better. You don't have to rely on aim shot for most of your damage, the drawback of having to cast it. And another great thing about stacking spell power is when you're against high armor targets, because you can burn through their armor, well, burn through their health pool more effectively, because you're basically ignoring, well, the majority of your damage is ignoring their armor. But it is important to note that you obviously also benefit from ranged attack power. Another thing I want to draw your attention to, let's get the loot tables open again. If you go to the item sets here, if you go to the Temple of Ankarar sets, you go to the hunter sets, the hunter sets here actually have spell power, which is just totally bizarre. So it's almost as if there was a little bit of design philosophy from Blizzard when they were making vanilla to have a spell power hunter. At the end of the day, arcane shot doesn't scale with attack power, so this spec, it's almost like it's actually a little bit intended. The Blizzard kind of felt the waters with it, but never really fully fleshed it out. So it's up to us as the players to kind of fully flesh it out with weird ways to make it viable. So I want to draw your attention to one other thing, okay? Hunters have an advantage over casters, and that is the ability to dual wield. Casters can't dual wield, so normally they have one spell damage weapon in their main hand, and then they have an offhand item. Normally the offhand item is kind of worse when it comes to spell damage, but if you look here, we have a weapon called the Claw of Chromagus. Not every single weapon is restricted. Most weapons are restricted in main hand. Most spell damage weapons are restricted in the main hand, but some you can put in the offhand. So you can have a very high spell power damage item in the main hand and the offhand. So you've got Claw of Chromagus there, and I'm pretty sure there's, the Azulsong Mage Blade there. You've got two weapons with extremely high spell damage, dual wielding, which will probably give you more spell damage than a staff ever could. And then it gets even better, because you can enchant both weapons with extra spell damage, and then you can use 2 wizard oils as well. So you could stack not shadow damage, just spell damage even further to a ridiculous amount. So I've just looked at the stats of the wizard oil and the Spellpower enchant, and it'll give you an extra 66 spell damage. Basically, you're going to constantly have an extra 66 spell damage over any other caster in the game. So yeah, that kind of stands out a little bit. And that's pretty much all I can say about the build, guys, apart from obviously that it scales with Serpent Sting as well to 100% of spell power coefficiency. I tried Viper Sting, does not scale with Viper Sting. Viper Sting is static, 1108 mana every single time. That is also the same with Traps. Traps do not scale with spell power in any shape or form. Mend Pet does, however, which is interesting. It means you can down rank your Mend Pet spells to save on mana. I found that quite useful. And Volley as well. It also scales a Volley, so it will increase your AoE damage, which could have quite a decent potential in Altaric Valley raid fight environments, where you can just kind of spread your Serpent Stings around the enemy raid and pop a little volley. You can probably contribute to the AoE DPS more significantly than a range attack power hunter. So obviously this spec isn't absolutely perfect. I'm not saying that it's the best PvP spec available to everyone, because there are some cons, and let's talk about the cons right now. So first of all, you're going to have less armor, because a lot of the time you're going to be wearing cloth, and basically you're going to be irritating a lot of people because you're going to be needing on cloth gear, which, let's be honest, you're probably not going to be able to do. You're probably not going to be able to justify needing on cloth gear very easily, unless it's just the cloth gear is really not needed. So yeah, it's going to be hard to gear up. You have less armor. There's no Viper Sting scaling, I've already said that. And yeah, no trap scaling. And so you're going to take a bit of a hit to your survivability. You probably take a bit of a hit to your standard DPS in a PvE environment. But apart from that, I think it's a fairly solid spec, and I think it's, it's just a bit of a gimmicky spec. And I think a lot of people could probably have a lot of fun with this in PvP, because you've got the extra instant damage, you've got extra dot damage. People have, you could basically nearly doing as much damage as an Affliction Warlock, possibly. Probably not as much actually, but if you combine Immolation Trap and Wyvern Sting dot together, maybe, to be honest, you could probably potentially out dot DPS an Affliction Warlock. Maybe we should make a video testing that. Anyway, that's pretty much where I'm going to end the video, guys. My name is Goblin. Till my next video, Ciao.